The platform dust rose when the express slid in and sighed, like it had to catch its breath before opening its doors. The heat, trapped between the tracks and the glass canopy, pressed a damp palm against the back of my neck. Denver in late August, all glare and tin. The mountains in the distance wore ashy light like someone had papered them in rice soft, bleached, fragile. Not white elephants, I thought. More like paper lanterns that you don't dare touch. We had 20 minutes. Mira set her duffel by the bench and rolled her shoulders, like the strap had put a finger-width bruise beneath each blade. She had cut her hair since last week short enough that her chain earrings flashed when she turned her head. She looked at the mountains like they could answer for her, a stubborn judge behind a hazy window. "Do you want water?" I asked. My voice always sounded too loud around her now, like I hadn't found the right room to stand in. "I'm fine," she said. There was a coffee kiosk at the end of the platform with a barista who'd drawn a smiley face in the chalk menu. I went anyway and came back with 2 waters, 2 paper cups of ice, and a stubborn idea that something cold might soften the edges. "Thanks," she said, which was something. She took 1 sip and then rested the bottle between her thighs. The sweat made the label loose. She kept turning the bottle like she could roll time forward or back with it. A group of college kids in matching hoodies, summer orientation leaders, dragged rolling suitcases past us and joked about boba spots near campus. One boy tipped an invisible hat to Mira. She didn't see it. "You know," I said, "it's not too late to not go today." Her eyebrows lifted, not interested. "And do what?" "We could go up to Estes. Hike a bit. Text the clinic and say we'll reschedule." "Reschedule," she repeated slow, like a teeth cleaning. "That's not what I know what you said," she said. "I heard you." The speaker cracked and spilled some official-sounding announcement, a place name smudged by static. Fort Collins, Greeley, something. I saw our train's nose crane down the line like it wanted to eavesdrop. I'd never noticed how trains seem both eager and patient, the way things are right before they break. Mira unzipped her duffel, just enough to press her fingers on the folded sweatshirt inside. "If we go to Estes," she said, "you'll make a game of it. You'll name a marmot. You'll say the clouds look like a parade of popcorn chickens." "I don't say that." "You do," she said. "You say things are like other things. And then you name them." She was smiling, but not the kind that holds both corners. Just one, the one that meant she decided to stay upright no matter what I said. "I was thinking paper lanterns," I said. She said, eyeing the mountains. "I never liked those. They're a little precious. They drip wax and wilt in the rain." "I meant how they look from far away," I said, "when someone else is holding them." She made a soft snort, then pinched her nose bridge to rub away an invisible ache. "You had coffee?" "2 sips," I said, and held up my breath mint. "Trying to spare you." "From coffee breath," she said, and looked at my mouth like it was an old problem. I looked at hers like it wasn't. We had a schedule printed from an email in her backpack. We had a rideshare app with a driver named DeAndre, who had 5 stars, and a car named Boone. We had a night booked at a hotel with a lobby that smelled like a clean idea of lemons. We had a clock ticking over us, polite and traitorous. We had everything organized, as if order could stop a thing from being a thing. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. She shrugged. "What's it?" Though I lower my voice. "The procedure." She swallowed, and her throat moved like she was trying to hide a small animal in there. "The word procedure feels like a plane in a holding pattern," she said. "Keeps circling, keeps being loud. What would you call it?" "An appointment," she said. "A thing we're doing at a place." "A Tuesday." "It's Saturday," I said. "Feels like Tuesday." She pressed the cold bottle between the bones in her wrist and flinched. "You always hated Tuesdays," she said. "Remember? In college. You said it was the day nobody asked for." I said that. "Yes," she said. "And you said Mondays are honest, Thursdays are hopeful, Fridays are loud. Wednesdays get to be smug because they're the middle, and Tuesdays are waiting rooms." I thought it was sweet. It sounded insufferable. "It was," she said. Her smile burned out and left a short silence behind it, like a wick still hissing. "I want to be gentle." I tried to line up gentle words on a little runway in my head, so they'd land right. "We're still us," I said soft. "These choices don't change who we are to each other." She looked at me for a long time. "It's not the choice that changes people," she said. It's the pretending afterward. I didn't answer because I was afraid of what she'd hear if I did. Once, on a night bus from Santa Fe to Albuquerque, we'd argued about whether road signs should apologize. The bus had flickered through foothills like the film was skipping. A sign said detour, and Mira said it should say sorry about this in small letters beneath. People would feel better, she said, if you name the inconvenience. You want a sign to validate you? I'd said, half teasing. I want the world to admit it takes without asking, she'd said, not teasing at all. It would be nice to have that written down where everyone could see. I thought about that now while a boy across from us filmed himself for a story pout, peace sign, tongue out, and captioned it Day 1, redefining me. The mountains behind his head weren't paper lanterns anymore. They were folded laundry. They were the inside of a seashell. They were everything except what they were. Mira touched her sternum where the top of her dress met the hollow, a map point she touches when she's deciding which way to go. She traced a small circle there, like she was polishing an old coin. How much time? She asked. 15 minutes, I said. Good, she said, in a voice that meant nothing about that was good. This one's fast, right? 35 minutes on the train? And then Boone will be waiting, I said. DeAndre, with the car. She nodded and messed with the cap on her bottle. I keep thinking I'll feel something decisive, like a bell or a click. You know those satisfying videos where you shut a drawer and it seals like a space station? That. I keep waiting. Do you want me to? I caught myself. Do you want this? She looked past me, a little to the left, where a flatbed loaded with bikes squeaked under the shade. You say want? And I hear a restaurant question. Do you want fries? Do you want the booth? Do you want to split a dessert? I can find another word. Need, she said. Do I need it? I don't know. Do I want it? I don't know. Her voice thinned. Do I not want it? I don't know. The only thing I know is that I don't want to be alone in it. You aren't. I know, she said. I know how your body is next to mine, and I know how your hand finds the back of my neck when I can't sleep. I know the way you look at me in a mirror like we're going to a wedding we weren't invited to, and maybe we'll ruin it on accident, and somehow that's romantic. I smiled because I remembered exactly that. I know all of that, she said. I also know the parts where you go quiet and start naming things. And I don't know which version of you would show up in a year or two. I won't disappear, I said. That's the funny thing about disappearance, she said. It's very polite. It knocks first. We took the 1010. The car was mostly empty. A girl with a guitar, a man with a salad in a clear box, a woman in scrubs asleep with her mouth open, soft, as if someone had set a flower on her. We stood for a while, then found 2 seats that faced the window. A woman's voice on the intercom went through the stops like reading a list of cousins at a reunion. Mira pressed her forehead to the glass. Our reflection sat in our laps, 2 pale, overlapping copies, until a tunnel rushed up and made us disappear into ourselves. When the light returned, everything outside was clean. Lines, warehouses, a stand of trees pretending to be a secret. She took my hand and put it under her thigh. I like the weight there, she said. Okay, I said. She wasn't looking at me. I watched our hands, awkward and tender, like a dog wearing shoes. The guitar girl started picking a melody under her breath that sounded like waking up from a dream and trying to keep it in your palm. The man with the salad shook dressing like a scientist. The woman in scrubs twitched herself to a new sleep angle, and a tiny tear from the air conditioning maybe stood in her right eye, refracting a brief rainbow when the sun hit it. I told my mother I was getting a skin check, Mira said. That works. She said, make sure they check that mole on your shoulder, like she'd been waiting to talk about it. Then she told me about a movie she watched where a woman marries a ghost. Which one was the ghost? The man, she said. But the movie didn't know it until the end. She breathed through her nose and then through her mouth. It's not that I need her, she said. I just like knowing exactly where to put the lie. You're allowed to tell the truth, you know, I said. It came out wrong, too clean. Am I? Yes. And would you tell your mother? She asked. I watched the seam in the seat cushion where someone had dropped a sunflower seed shell. The car leaned into a curve, and a road below us tilted so that parked cars looked like they might slide away. I don't know, I said. That's what I thought, she said. The intercom voice announced Commerce City and a list of rules we already knew. Mira moved my hand so my thumb lay on the seam where her thigh meets the curve of bone. I remember a night last winter when we'd put pillows on the floor and watched a documentary about people who build marvelous tiny houses and then never actually live in them. We'd fallen asleep before the end. I felt cheated, but couldn't say why. Do you remember the first time we saw snow together? She asked. Silver Spring, I said. Your car's wipers were half frozen, and you pretended you knew what you were doing with the brush, but also insisted on wearing my hat. It looked better on me, she said. Everything does. She made the one corner smile again. And we walked to that diner with the bad coffee and the good pie and the teenage waitress who made a joke about retirement plans. That pie was ridiculous, I said. I liked how the snow made the streetlights into little planets, she said. Every circle was its own place. She turned in and looked at me like a decision might have got on this train without a ticket, and she was finally ready to see if it would take a seat. I'm not punishing you, she said. Do you think I am? No good, she said, because I don't want to. I want you to know something and still want me. I do, I said too fast. Of course I do. Want, she said again, and this time it didn't sound like a restaurant question. The neighborhood around the clinic had the kind of trees that make a sound like fresh paper when the wind goes through. DeAndre Boone was kind. He asked if we needed the AC higher, if we had any music requests, if we wanted mint. His car smelled like a well-planned future freshener, vacuum, hope. He dropped us next to a cafe with a chalkboard sign that said, maybe you just need a lemon bar. The clinic door was 2 storefronts down. The glass had a frosted band across the middle, so you could see the tops of heads and the bottoms of shoes, but not the faces. I thought of playing cards. Mira stood there, watching nothing on the sidewalk. Let's sit for a minute, she said. She took my arm, and we found a little table under an umbrella that was suffering a little under the sun. The cafe served iced coffee in mason jars and water that tasted like someone had just thought about strawberries near it. Do you want? I started. Don't ask me what I want, she said gently. Just be here and say something about the weather. It's hot and dramatic, I said, like a theater class trying too hard. She laughed real. Thank you. A woman with a stroller passed, looking like a queen who hadn't decided if she liked her crown. A man on a scooter dragged a dog the size of a throw pillow, who could not believe in sidewalks. 2 girls used a storefront as a mirror and adjusted shirts in ways that let them grow into themselves for a second. What would you name a place where everything is about to happen but hasn't yet? Mira asked. Tuesday, I said. She gave me a look. I set you up for that. I'm obliging. She rolled the mason jar so the condensation made a dark ring on the table. She put her finger in the ring and drew a circle, then another circle, then a smaller one, like a ripple trying to remember how it started. If we go in, she said, we go in together. Of course. And afterward, we go to the hotel, and you stay with me if I want you to stay with me. And you leave and get more ice if I want more ice. And if I want to talk, you listen. And if I want to sleep, you don't stare. I won't stare. You can stare while I'm sleeping if it's the kind of staring that blesses, she said. Not the kind that weighs. Do you know the difference? I think so, I said. Good, she said, because you do both. She looked at the clinic door. A woman came out laughing, talking into her phone about parking validation. A couple went in the man's shoulder brushed the frosted band, the woman's shoes clicking like a metronome with a sense of humor. Mira tapped the table twice with the side of her hand. Let's go, she said and stood. Inside, everything was calm like an optimistic email. We filled out forms that gave us options like they were choosing ice cream flavors. We signed what we needed to sign. We sat in chairs that were designed not to let you slouch too deeply into a feeling. A TV on the wall played a slideshow of landscapes with words like breathe and here fading in and out like polite visitors. Mira squeezed my fingers, then let go. Will you wait? Yes. Will you get a lemon bar after and pretend it's the best thing you've ever eaten? Yes. Good, she said. A nurse called her name, not her real name, the one she wrote down today, because it felt like the kind of day that could use a different name. I watched her go, watched the curve of her neck, the earring swing like a clock that had agreed to play along. I sat. I listened to a woman at the desk whisper to another woman about a soccer game. I listened to my pulse in my bad ear, the one that always flutters when I don't have a plan. I watched the slideshow tell me breathe, and then here, and then a picture of a path through aspens, all white arms, all clean. I wanted to name everything in the room so I'd have something to do with my head. Chair, patient. Plant, plastic. Table, resolute. Clock, condescending. But then I saw a girl across from me, maybe 19, tearing the corner from a packet of tissues one rabbit ear at a time. She wasn't crying. She was just building a pile of white confetti in her lap, like a winter that belonged to her. I stopped naming things because some things should keep their own names. People went in, people came out. One woman sat, stood, and then finally sat like she'd made peace with gravity. A man wheeled his girlfriend past, stopped, and put his forehead on her knee while he reached for something in his pocket that wasn't there. He laughed at himself. She petted his hair like fixing a page. When the nurse appeared again and said the name we gave them, I forgot which name was ours and then remembered just in time. I stood in a rush and then sat because that wasn't what she'd asked me to do yet. The nurse put a hand on my shoulder, just a landing, not a promise, and said, "She's doing fine." Fine is a trick word. It weighs whatever you set on it. "Thank you," I said. They brought me back to a small room where the walls were the color of cereal milk. Mira lay half reclined, a blanket on her knees, a cup of water on a tray like a prize. Her face was gray in the way that happens when a person is forced to be only a body for a little while. She opened one eye, found mine, and made the not tired smile that people make when they're exhausted but don't want you to worry. "Hey," she said, small. "Guess what? The nurse's name was Tuesday." "You're lying." "I am," she said, "but it made you smile." I took her hand and felt the tape where they'd just been a needle. "How do you feel?" "Like I gave blood to a cause I don't fully understand," she said. "Like I'm about to be cold." She shivered. "I'll get a sweater," I said. "No," she said. "Stay. You can help me put the socks back on." I put the socks on. She always says I put socks on like I'm proposing marriage to each toe. I tried to do it casually this time. It still felt like a vow. The nurse said a thing about aftercare, about rest, about calling if we needed anything. She said, "Everyone is different." She said it like a spell that covers everything and nothing. When it was time to leave, Mira stood slow. She leaned into me with her hip until her balance remembered what to do. We moved like a unit, a two-person parade with one float. At the desk, the clerk asked if we wanted to schedule a follow-up. Mira said yes in a voice that made the Y soft. Outside, the light was lower. The Paper Lantern Mountains had warmed to oatmeal. The street felt like a breath after sobbing. The cafe had moved the chalkboard inside. The umbrella was folded like it didn't want to answer questions. "Lemon bar," she said. "Lemon bar," I said. We sat in the same seats. The ring was still on the table. She put her cup in it again, like a promise she didn't need to say out loud. "How is it?" I asked. "Like the best thing I've ever eaten," she said. "You should try it." She cut a square and put it in my mouth. Sugar and tart. Powdered sugar all over everything, like a clumsy blessing. She laughed when some dusted my lip and reached with her thumb to wipe it. She stuck her thumb in her mouth, deliberate, and I pretended not to notice the choreography of the world. At the hotel, the lemons were trying too hard again. We took the elevator with a couple in swimsuits and a dad who had 3 pool noodles like neon hobgoblins over his shoulder. Our room had a mural of a fox in sunglasses in the minibar and a car that said, "Text us if you need anything at all." The bed had too many pillows. A crime hotels commit as a distraction. Mira went to the bathroom and leaned on the sink to look at herself. I stood in the doorway and watched the echo of her shoulder in the mirror. She put both palms on either side of her reflection's face and pressed like she could hold herself there. "You're here," she said to her reflection, and I pretended she'd said it to me. I ordered ice because that was a job I could do perfectly. When it came, I filled the bucket with the seriousness of field surgery. I put a towel on the bed and arranged the ice like a sculpture of something practical. Mira lay down and let me place the cool where she pointed. Her breath slowed when I got it right. She closed her eyes and opened them, like calibrating. "How is it?" I asked. "Like Time is a dog I'm teaching to heel," she said. "Did you say heel?" "I did," she said, "but also heal." We lay still for a while. The AC hummed. A siren somewhere faded. Someone in the hallway argued affectionately about whether to order tacos or wings. Mira reached for my hand and put it on her stomach and pressed until our knuckles protested. "Do you think we'll talk about it like this?" she asked. "Like the lemon bar and the nurse and the socks." "Yes," I said. "We'll talk about everything around it. In the middle, when we want to," I said. "When you want to." She nodded, sleepy. "Tell me something about the mountains," she said. "They look like paper lanterns," I said, "but only when someone else is holding them." "Say more." "They look both close and far at the same time. They make you feel like someone left the door open to another idea and you could just walk through." "I like that," she said. "They look like they might fold if you touch them," I said. "But then they wouldn't." She exhaled and found the part of the mattress where gravity favors you. "You can name things," she said, eyes closed. "Today it's okay." "Okay," I said, and named the hum of the air conditioner patience. I named the scratch in the headboard a map to a city where everyone already forgives you. I named the ice a chorus. I named her breath a metronome for a song that hasn't learned its chorus yet. I named the ache that crossed her face a herald that would not stay. I did not name what we did. I didn't have to. It was already called what it was. We woke to that dim hotel evening where everything is the color of a fresh bruise. Mira reached out and found me the way you find your phone in the dark tap relief. She pulled me closer until we fit like a team, like a plan you make in the kitchen that still sounds good in the living room. "Hungry?" I asked. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe for that pizza from the place with the basil that looks like it was placed on one leaf at a time." "I can do that," I said. "Do you want to?" She put her hand on my mouth as gently as a cotton ball. "Don't ask one. I'll start to cry for no good reason. Just do it and tell me there will be napkins and that we'll sit on the floor to eat it and that you won't be weird about me not finishing." "There will be napkins," I said. "We'll sit on the floor. I will not be weird." "Thank you," she said. After I ordered, I sat on a carpet and leaned against the bed. Mira slid down beside me, her shoulder against mine, both of us watching the dim mural fox look like it wanted to sell us something unhelpful. She touched my forearm the way people check a melon for ripeness. "Squeeze, listen." Her touch didn't ask for anything, which made me want to give it anyway. "Do you hate me?" she asked out of the dark. "No," I said. "I love you." "Do you hate us?" "No," I said. "I love us." "Good," she said, "because sometimes I hate gravity for working so reliably. Like it could let me float just once, and it refuses. And gravity feels like us right now. I didn't know what to do with that except hold it, which turned out to be enough. We didn't talk about next year. We didn't talk about next month. We scheduled the follow-up and a date to go see a film about dancers who kept falling and calling it choreography. We set a small future in the room, like placing a vase on a windowsill where it might catch light without having to try. Later, when we had eaten the pizza in wide, slow bites, Mira took out her phone and typed a note. She handed it to me. The note said, "Tell me about the lanterns again." I typed, "They're not fragile. They just look that way when they're distant. Up close, you can see the wire." She typed, "And the wire does what?" I typed, "Holds a shape. Reminds the light where to live." She typed, "We have that." I looked at her profile, a soft line in the low light, and back at the words. I typed, "I want to." She took the phone back and didn't type anything for a while. Then she put the phone face down and took my hand and put it on the place where the ice had been and pressed until the heat shared itself. "Okay," she said, "not about anything in particular." The air conditioner kept humming its one song. The fox in the minibar didn't move. The mountains, if we'd been able to see them, would have kept holding their poses like something to be lit for a festival you can't quite remember the name of. We lay quiet long enough that when the knock came for the pizza, it sounded like a polite visitor who dropped the map and still found the right door. We ate on the floor. We let the basil be ridiculous. We used too many napkins because sometimes an abundance of napkins is the only abundance you can manage. We didn't finish, and I didn't say anything about it. Later, after Mira brushed her teeth and sat back on the bed, knees up, face clean and tired, she said, "If I cry, it's not about anything you can fix." "I know," I said. "But you could still stay," she said. "I will," I said. For as long as you like. She nodded, and the earrings clicked gently, two small clocks agreeing. She lay down with her back to me and reached for my arm, dragging it over her waist, telling it where to rest. I asked the air for quiet. The air obliged. She cried then, the kind that's not dramatic, the kind that is a private climate passing over a landscape. I held the shape. I reminded the light where to live. We didn't say the word for what had happened. It didn't need us. It was already true. We named the other things the things we could hold. Lemon bar, Tuesday, paper lantern, socks. We built a little altar to ordinary life and put the day there, not to worship, just so we know where it was if we needed a point. When her breath evened out, I stayed awake and looked at the ceiling where the air vent made a small, repeating shadow in the corner. I thought about road signs that apologize. I thought about a nurse with a soft voice and a clipboard that didn't judge. I thought about a place where you could get a certificate that says, "You were kind today when it was hard." I thought about my quiet days and my naming days and the part of me that wants to move past things like their speed bumps in a parking lot with a sale. And I thought, no, not this. I didn't say a prayer, but I did make a promise in the humble language of the moment. I will not pretend afterward. I will remember, even when remembering makes me clumsy. I will carry the shape without naming it something easier. Outside, a car horn gave one long sound like a ship in fog. The air conditioner answered with its steady engine. I lay still and counted to nothing. I woke to the sound of the hotel, AC taking a deeper breath than usual, like it had remembered an old grievance with the vent and decided to say its piece. Mira was still against me, my forearm hooked around her waist like a promise I'd fallen asleep repeating. The light through the blackout curtains came in around the edges as a pale border, the kind of light that looks like it's just checking if you're still there. She moved a little, that small adjustment you make when your body remembers it has a map. I whispered her name, the real one, not the clinic name. She made a sound that meant I could say it again. Mira. She rolled to face me, hair flat on one side, the chain earring print pressed in her cheek like delicate armor. Do I look wrecked? She asked, voice rough. No, I said. You look like Sunday morning after a storm. Your metaphors need coffee. I can get coffee. Let's stay still for one more minute, she said. We stayed. I counted the slow beat of her pulse where my thumb lay. It was good and ordinary, the kind of pulse that has errands later. When she finally sat up, she moved like someone carefully folding a big map back into a small pocket. Shower, she said. Not hot. Warm, I said. I'll set the towels on the chair. She stood at the bathroom sink for a while, with the water running, palms under it but not in it, as if she was letting the sound do the washing first. The shower hissed. The mural fox looked unimpressed with both of us. I opened the curtains the polite amount and let the city in. Low roofs, a strip of mountain like a held breath, a billboard urging us toward a brand of joy we couldn't afford. I texted DeAndre to ask about rides later. He replied with a thumbs up that somehow felt pastoral. When Mira came out, she had hotel hair, clean, stubborn, a little confused about gravity. She put on a soft sweatshirt from her duffel and the socks I'd married toe by toe. She rubbed a towel over her head and said, I had a dream that you were trying to get into a car, but the door was a book. What book? I asked. A dictionary, she said. You were mad because all the words were there, but none of them made the handle. That sounds right, I said. She smiled, and I let myself be proud of that. Do you want? I stopped. I'm going to run downstairs for coffee and maybe a plain bagel. The kind that turns to paste and calls it comfort. Good, she said. Get napkins, even if we don't need them. I'll be back fast. I'm not going anywhere, she said, which was a gift I put carefully on a shelf I could reach. The lobby was trying to be a friend. A man in a suit that had lost the promise of its shoulders stirred his coffee like he was worried about what it had done. A little girl in a tutu climbed a chair and declared herself Mountain King, while her parents negotiated a truce with a croissant. I ordered 2 coffees, one with milk, one black, and 2 bagels that looked like what cartoons meant when they drew breakfast. Back upstairs, Mira had pulled the comforter into a wave around her. She took the coffee, smelled it first, and then took a careful sip like she was keeping a secret from her mouth. I have a plan, she said after a while. I'm listening. Check out at noon. Drive back. Stop somewhere on the way that's not a chain. Not because chains are evil, but because I don't want to be seen by anything that has a loyalty program. At home, we launder the clothes we wore yesterday and put the socks back in the drawer with the good ones. We buy a small plant and don't name it for 2 weeks. We schedule a follow-up. You call your mother and talk about nothing important for 7 minutes. So you have a recorded call log that says you were a son today. I will call mine and let her tell me about another movie where a man is secretly a cloud. Practical and mythic, I said. I like this plan. Also, she said, tonight, please don't make it about making it up to me. I need it to be about soup. Soup, I said. Any particular soup? The kind that forgives people for eating slowly, she said. I want a soup that applauds restraint. Tomato will do that. Miso is a tiny nun. Chicken noodle is a friendly uncle. Pho is a whole parade with a moral. You named soups like you're calling roll in homeroom, she said. I'll bring napkins. You better. We packed in the quiet way people pack when they're leaving a place that didn't ask them many questions. I did the room check rotation, my ritual of plugs and pockets, the underbed arm sweep for an orphan sock that later ruins a week. Mira sat on the edge of the bed and watched me with an expression I couldn't place. Not amusement, not impatience, not exactly love. Maybe something like cataloging. Do you do this when I'm not around? She asked. Yes, I said. I have a list in my head. The list begets calm. Begets, she said. Okay, dictionary door. We left the key cards on the table like offerings. The elevator sang its small, neutral song. In the lobby, the man in the shoulderless suit was gone. The Mountain King girl had abdicated and was naming the fish in a small tank trout, and also trout. Outside, the air had decided on a temperature and was sticking to it. I ordered a car, not Boone this time, but a woman named Nadia with a profile picture that had her and a dog sharing the kind of smile that costs you nothing and gets you everything. Hospital or home? She asked when we climbed in, a question that felt like a coach she offered and didn't push. Home, Mira said, with one stop. We'll tell you. Nadia nodded, adjusted her mirror so it included our faces, which felt kind. We moved through the city like a cautious thought. I watched the sidewalks. You can always learn a place by how people wait for the light. Here, they leaned in, not reckless, but like they'd asked the world for a favor before, and sometimes it had said yes. We stopped at a storefront plant shop called Part of My Leaves. The window was full of little green negotiations. A teen with a septum ring and a t-shirt that said Plant Daddy Issues stood behind the counter reading a mystery novel with a cover like a bruise. We're looking for something small, I said, that doesn't mind neglect and responds well to whispered apologies. Snake plant, they said, not looking up. Then they did look up, saw us, and softened their voice. Or a ZZ. Low light, slow to take offense. We bought a ZZ, a pot that looked like a quiet joke, and a tiny bag of pebbles that the teen said were for drainage, but also, look how cute. Mira carried the plant like it might offer advice if she kept it close enough. We went next door for 2 sandwiches and 2 soups, the tomato that applauds restraint and the miso none, and I tipped like I could tip the day into a better mood. On the drive home, Mira rested her head on the glass again, but softer now. Tell me 3 true things, she said. About what? Anything. But they have to be true for you. Not true like a fortune cookie. True like you'd write them on the wall of a house you were leaving. I considered. 1, I said. I don't know if I want children. I know I want to be good in the lives I already have. I felt my pulse race for a second, the body's honesty getting ahead of my mouth. That's good, she said. That's not a fortune cookie. 2, I said. I'm afraid of being the kind of man who thinks he's kind, but is really just neat. She looked at me for that. Go on. Neatness can be a form of control, I said. Kindness is messy, eh? It's a verb. Sometimes I confuse tidy for good. She took my hand without looking. Last one. 3, I said. I don't know how this day will shake loose in our memory, but I want to be the person who doesn't pretend it was smaller than it was. She didn't answer for a minute. My 3, she said finally. 1, I'm angry at my body for showing me a door and then asking me to be the bouncer. 2, I still want ice even though I don't need ice. I think I want the symbol more than the cold. 3, I'm not done with you. Nadia breathed in quietly, like a good driver, trying not to make a sound that comments on anything. Thank you, I said to Mira. For the three. She nodded and watched the world become familiar again. Home wasn't a sanctuary exactly, more of a place our things were waiting. The fern looked accusatory. I'd overwatered it again. The dish rack had two bowls mutually drying. We set the ZZ plant on the windowsill over the sink where the light behaves. We didn't name it. We used the pebbles and said we weren't going to call them drainage or cute, but necessary. I made the soups and plated the sandwiches like a nurse who moonlights as a line cook. We ate at the table instead of the couch. Mira arranged a napkin on her lap with ceremony. She took a bite, closed her eyes like she was listening to a museum audio guide, explaining this painting is about grief, but in a way that invites you in. It's doing its job, she said, applauding restraint. Bless the tomato, I said. Bless it, she said. After, I cleaned up while she sat with her feet on another chair, hands around the mug like she could distill steam into courage. I checked my phone. 2 texts from a group chat about fantasy football. I don't play. One from my mother with a picture of her cat glaring at a cucumber. I thought about the 7-minute call Mira had written into the plan. I called. Hey, Ma, I said. You're alive, she said. Your voice sounds like you've been drinking the wrong kind of tea. What's the right kind? Whatever doesn't taste like a decision, she said. You sound like decisions. I'm okay, I said. We were in the city for the night. Stayed at that hotel with the fox in the minibar. You and Mira? She asked, testing my tone for cracks. Yes, I said. She's a good one, she said, as if adjusting a painting until it hung straight. Your father says hello. He is currently installing a shelf that will be crooked by dinner. Tell him to use a level. I did, she said. He is leveling his pride instead. She paused. What did you eat? Lemon bar, I said. And pizza. And soup. You ate like your grandmother, she said. Good. Drink water. I will. We kept it light. I let her talk about the cat versus cucumber saga and a neighbor who keeps putting his trash out on Monday instead of Tuesday. When we said goodbye, she said, softer, you know you can tell me anything. I know, I said. It was both true and strategically insufficient. Love you. Love you, she said. Tell Mira I like her bangs, even if she's doing something different with them this week. After I hung up, Mira raised her mug in a toast. You were a son today, she said. 7 minutes? 8, I said. Overachiever. Don't get cocky. She stood, stretched, flinched a little, and then decided not to tell her face to pretend it hadn't. Let's do laundry, she said. Let's put yesterday where it belongs. We carried the bag down the hall like a shared penalty. The machines made their heroic noises. We sat on the plastic chairs and watched the spin. A good secular meditation. A girl from 3 floors up came in with a basket and a small dog in a sling. The dog side-eyed us like it was evaluating our form. Hey, the girl said. You two okay? You look like someone pressed pause on your favorite scene. We're fine, Mira said, and the word was good in her mouth. Less trick, more statement. Just Sundaying. Sounds serious, the girl said. She fed quarters into the hungry mouth of a dryer and whispered, Eat up, baby, like a witch whose spells are contracts. We folded in stages. Myra's sweatshirt, a narrative of softness. My shirts, the level my father refuses to use. Socks, paired like dancers. When we put everything away, Mira closed the drawer and put her palm flat on it for a second, as if shutting a book gently, so it wouldn't lose its place. In the afternoon, we did the email things, rescheduled the barber, replied, looks great, to a link that did not look great, confirmed the follow-up with the clinic. Mira typed with a steady rhythm that made me love her for all the government forms she has outwitted. I paid the utilities and thanked past me for autopay like he was a competent cousin. At 4, the light came through the blinds as stripes, and the ZZ plant took them like a compliment. Mira lay on the couch with a book open face down on her chest and said, I don't want to read. I want to be read to. I took the book. A collection of essays about small, ordinary things, the geometry of grocery store aisles, the etiquette of door holding, the theology of lost mittens. I read an essay called On Bananas, which was about how they bruise if you look at them wrong and how we forgive them anyway. Good, she said, eyes closed. Again, we did 3 essays and a micro story about a man who gives away all his furniture to trick himself into not being sad, And then the man sits on the floor and feels sad and also lighter, and the story doesn't decide for him. Mira said, "Good. I like endings that don't push me." Later, she asked if I wanted to go for a walk, just around the block. Slow. If we see someone, we can wave and be normal and then come home and admit the waving took something out of us. We did that. The air was the right temperature and the wrong smell. Someone grilling something that had once had an opinion. A teen scootered past us humming a TV theme. An older couple argued about whether a certain tree was a sweet gum or a maple, and their fight made me feel safe. A kid on a bike tried to pop a wheelie and failed and declared, "Next time for sure," to nobody and to us. Mira laughed, put her hand on my elbow for balance, and said, "Next time for sure." She said it like a line you hang near the door. The night was easier than I prepared for. We watched half of the Dancers movie and paused when it got too beautiful to bear. Mira said, "They keep falling for a living." Imagine that being the job description. We brushed our teeth at the same sink, one at a time, because intimacy and elbows are cousins who shouldn't share a bunk. In bed, she lay on her back and asked me to name things again, but quietly. "Fan," I said. "Cautious wind." "Window," she said. "Permission," I said. She smiled. "Blanket." "Hideout." "Tomorrow," she said after a pause. "Borrowed," I said. She turned to me, eyes open in the dark. "And us." "Practicing," I said. She let go of a breath that had been held since yesterday. "Good," she said. She fell asleep quickly, the kind of sleep you earn by spending all your coins. I lay awake longer, not out of worry, but because I felt a shift like the house had settled into its foundation. I thought about the game we played on the train, want versus need. The word that kept showing up now wasn't either. It was with, a preposition making itself the whole sentence. The follow-up was on Tuesday, which felt like an on-the-nose joke the universe decided it was okay to tell. The nurse, a different one, said, "How are we?" in that collective way, and I appreciated the grammar. Mira said, "Sore, but not sad the way I expected. Also angry, but not at anything useful." And the nurse said, "That tracks. Anything we should watch for?" I asked. "Signs your body's trying to send you a telegram," the nurse said. She listed them, and we nodded. "And signs your head is trying to send you a text at 3 a.m. You can call about those, too." She wrote a number on a card and underlined it like she knew underlines are small boats. Afterward, we went to a diner that had the courage to be a diner. Mira ordered pancakes because sometimes you need an edible truce. I got eggs that would have been mediocre if not for the context, which lent them the dignity of doing their job. A couple in a booth near us had a new baby folded onto the seat like a letter, just opened. The parents looked like new soldiers and also children who had found a dragon egg. We watched them without staring. The baby made a small noise like a question. Mira put her fork down and smiled in a way that didn't break anything. "Okay," I asked quietly. "Okay," she said. "I can watch other lives exist." When we left, Mira dropped $1 on the table, and then another $1, and then took one back because she didn't want to get symbolic with money. On the sidewalk, she held my hand. Not the knuckle map hold. The friendly kind, like we were going to a party to which we'd both been invited. Days happened. They're very good at that. Mundane things did their clean work. The email from HR about open enrollment, the reminder to change the smoke alarm batteries, the trash carts like stout blue bishops lining the curb. We took the ZZ plan out for a rotation on the coffee table and then put it back like a child you let stay up for one more story. At night, I wrote down 3 true things in a notebook. Some were small and unimportant and therefore permanent. 1. I still don't like raisins unless they are pretending to be grapes in disguise. 2. It helps to put the shoes away because walking around them is a kind of anger. 3. When Myra's laughing private, not laughing public, she covers her eyes first and then realizes it's safe and lets her hands fall. I didn't show Mira the notebook, not because it was a secret, but because I wanted to bring her a basket of ripened truths later after I understood what I was harvesting. One afternoon, while I was answering a dull email with too much care, Mira texted, "Want to go see lanterns?" I texted, "Paper." She replied with a link to a park event. Lantern walk at dusk. Pictures of kids holding orbs on sticks, parents snapping photos, teenagers pretending not to be delighted and failing adorably. We could watch from the hill and not say anything, she wrote. Yes, I wrote. And afterward, soup. Soup forever, she wrote. The park was full of light that had been taught manners. Lanterns bobbed like friendly moons. A boy ran past us and shouted, "Mine is a dragon egg." And his father shouted, "Be gentle with the egg." And the boy supplied, "It's a dragon who likes being shaken." And everyone decided to believe him for now. We sat on the hill, a little apart from the crowd, and watched the walk become a river. The organizers had set out a path lined with tea lights, and the whole thing felt like a recipe for a religion that doesn't mind if you just hum. Mira slipped her arm through mine and leaned her head on my shoulder. "Say it," she said. "Paper lanterns," I said. "They look fragile from far away, but up close you can see the wire." She exhaled through her nose, content. "We're not far away." "No," I said. A teen couple near us, both in black with carefully shredded knees, were trying to light a lantern with a broken lighter. Mira stood, went over, and offered the lighter from her bag. The girl said, "Thanks," like she had recently learned what graciousness feels like and found she liked it. The boy nodded and said, "Safe night," which sounded like something he'd rehearsed in his head for being the kind of boy who says safe night. I loved him on sight for trying. When Mira came back, she didn't sit immediately. She stood in front of me and looked down at my face like she was deciding which shelf to put me on. Then she sat and took my hand, and her taking of it felt like picking up a tool she'd set down to see if she could reach something without it, and then realizing tools are noble companions. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For naming things," she said. "For not naming the thing. For the soup. For not asking me to be wise. For being okay with me being beautiful and also extremely boring." "You're never boring." "I'm sometimes," she said. "And it's a relief." We stayed until the tea lights gave up and the teenagers declared themselves hungry and the parents negotiated with bedtimes, and the orbs of light drifted toward the parking lot like planets accepting a carpool. On the walk home, Mira said, "I want to tell you something, but you can't fix it." "I can hold it," I said. "I wanted to see what it would feel like to want it," she said. "A future where we have a child." The wanting did not arrive. I kept checking the mailbox. It was full of coupons and political flyers. I want it for you, or for me, or for us, or for a story I could live in and feel lovely. It didn't come, but I didn't want to not want it out of fear either. I didn't want fear to be the author. "You know, I do," I said. "So I'm left with not wanting it right now, and not wanting to write a myth about forever. I'm left with us, and soup, and small plants. That's plenty," I said and believed it. A week later, at the bar where all the stools know my knees, my friend Marco asked, "So how's your situation?" He always says hard nouns like he's trying them on. "Which one?" I asked, stalling. "The one where your face looks 10 minutes older," he said, then softened. "You don't have to." "It's okay," I said. "We went to a clinic. It was okay. It was what it was. We're okay." He nodded. The nod men learn for not making a thing about themselves. "Do you want kids?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, and the relief of the truth arrived from the kitchen still warm. "I want to keep the promises I can keep. I want to be less neat and more kind." He raised his glass, then set it down without clinking because the wisdom of not turning everything into a toast had finally visited him. "Good," he said. "Do you need me to do anything?" "Come over Saturday," I said. "We're making soup for an army, and no army is coming." "I can be several soldiers," he said. "I have the appetite." He came and told a story about getting stuck in an elevator with a cello player and how it turned into a concert he didn't ask for and didn't know he needed. Mira laughed and fed him like he was a stray we decided to keep. Later, after he left and the bowls were stacked like promises kept, Mira said, "That was a good choice of man to have in your corner." "I don't know about corners," I said, "but he's good in a room." On a Saturday that smelled like pencils, Mira said, "Let's go to Estes." She said it not to undo anything, not to pretend the train had never brought us to the clinic, but because the mountains had been promised a visit and promises are living things. We drove early, the sun making a long yellow argument across the hood. We stopped at a gas station where the coffee had opinions and bought a bag of jerky that promised to be wilder than you, which made us laugh because we were not wild that morning. We were gentle. At the trailhead, we moved slow. A marmot watched us like a critic whose review was due Monday, but who might short-circuit and give us 5 stars. The air was cleaner than the cities and less ambitious. We walked until the path turned into a conversation between rocks, and then we sat and let the mountain introduce its quiet. "Tell me what you see," she said, head on my shoulder. "Sky that forgot it has to be infinite," I said. "Trees performing the role of trees. A chipmunk who suspects we have snacks and is composing an argument." "And the mountains?" she asked. "Lanterns," I said. "Not white elephants." "Too precious," she said. "Too much myth." We sat until our legs had opinions. On the way down, a family with a kid in a dinosaur hat hiked past us. The kid said to the entire trail, "I am not tired," which is what tired says when it wants to negotiate. The parents laughed and then didn't laugh, and they all kept moving, which is as close to a moral as hiking gets. At the bottom, at the car, we looked back. The mountains continued to be themselves without our supervision. This was somehow rude and reassuring. At night now, the house had a different quiet. Not tense. More like a book left open on a table you'll return to. We kept the ZZ plant alive despite ourselves. We did not name it, but sometimes we called it friend in the way you call any object that's been helpful, buddy or pal, without committing to paperwork. I kept writing 3 true things. I didn't miss a night. 1. I'm learning to let silence not be a test I'm failing. 2. I like how Mira ties her shoes. She double knots like a sailor who has lost things to the sea. 3. The future is not a single hallway. It's a house with many doors, and some of them open onto small porches where you drink water and watch rain. One evening, I put the notebook on the table and said, "These are for you, when you want them." Mira touched it the way you touch something hot to check if it's cool. She didn't open it. She put her hand over it and said, "Thank you for not turning me into a lesson." "Never," I said. "I'm barely teachable myself." "Barely," she agreed. We had a fight 10 days later. This seems important, not because of the content. It was about dishes and a calendar in a tone that sounded like sarcasm, but was actually exhaustion, but because it did not break us. We argued like 2 people who'd taken a class on arguing and then forgot some of the rules. We raised our voices, then lowered them, then laughed at the part where we raised them, then apologized without dramatic declarative sentences. At one point, Mira said, "You're making it about being right," and I said, "Because being right is a small, easy food," and she said, "We're trying to eat soup," and we both stopped and acknowledged the callback like professionals in a play who hit their mark. After, we sat on the steps in our socks and shared the last cold slice of pizza from the storm day and said, "Okay," and meant it. I wrote 3 true things that night, and one of them was, asterisk practice means you do it when you're not good at it. Otherwise, it's just showing off. Asterisk. On a Tuesday, of course, the clinic sent a satisfaction survey. This felt like a category error and also an opportunity to do something right. Mira opened it, made a face, and then said, "Let's answer it," in a tone that signaled adult mode. Clipboards, pens. The questions were what you'd expect. Check boxes that wanted to be democracy, text fields that wanted to be memoirs. We answered with honesty at a temperature the survey could handle. When it asked if we would recommend the clinic to a friend, Mira typed, asterisk yes, if it comes to it. I hope it doesn't, and I'm glad it exists. Asterisk when it asked if we had suggestions, I typed. Asterisk put a sign on the wall that says, "You can call about the 3 a.m. text from your head." Asterisk Mira added, "Offer lemon bars in the vending machine." We submitted and felt lighter in the way that hitting a button sometimes tricks you into thinking you've pushed the world. We visited Marco and his partner Dan one night for dinner, the kind where the table is long and everyone's a little taller at it. There was a kid there, Dan's niece, 6 years old, and suffering none of this. She told us a story about a pigeon who went to school and failed math because crumbs are hard to add. We listened like it was scripture. Later, after dishes and the ritual of leftovers planning, while the niece used a marker to turn a toilet paper tube into a telescope of power, Dan asked Mira, "Kids in the cards?" "Mira met my eyes." The room was warm and full of soft things, bread, the cat, the laughter that doesn't have to perform. "Not in our cards today," she said. "We're playing a different game." "Good," Dan said, like someone who knows many games. "Shuffle well." Marco poured more wine and then, without making a show of it, poured the rest of mine back into the bottle, and handed me water. Hydrate, he said, in the voice of a coach who cares more about your legs at mile 12 than your time at mile 1. The first time Mira went running again, I went with her. She set a pace that forgave both of us. Our feet found the echo of each other. She breathed like an argument resolved. At the corner, she stopped and doubled over, laughing. What? I asked, winded. I remembered the nurse saying, "Everyone is different," she said. And I heard it in my head as if she was telling a room full of students. And we were the assignment. "We'll get an A for attendance," I said. "We're going to audit the class," she said. "We're here to learn without grades." We jogged home, sweaty and unhandsome, and I thought, I'm exactly the level of alive I can manage right now. It was enough. On a Thursday, hopeful day by my old taxonomy, I found myself at the grocery store in the aisle with the paper goods paralyzed by napkins. We had napkins in the cart already, but I wanted the right ones for a night I was planning without planning it. Soup? Always. Bread, the lantern walk reprised, but with candles on the table, a playlist of songs that don't demand you remember their lyrics. A woman beside me picked up a pack of napkins with little lemons and held them up to her friend. "Two on the nose," she said. "Just enough nose," her friend said. I bought the lemons. I don't believe in signs, but I do believe in jokes the universe tells you when you're almost ready to laugh again. That night, the lemon napkins made Mira snort into her spoon. "We're characters," she said. "Always," I said. "But also people." "Good," she said. "I don't want to live in a metaphor. I want to live in our apartment." "We have good chairs," I said. "We do," she said. Sometimes in the small hours, my brain tests the emergency broadcast system. It says, "What if we had done something else?" It says, "Are you a good man? Or are you neat?" It says, "Do you deserve her?" I answer like a parent who opens the door, checks that the noise was only the house settling, and goes back to bed. Asterisk, we did what we did. I will be kind on purpose. I will practice. I deserve what I tend. Asterisk, on one of those nights, Mira woke, turned to me, and said, "I dreamed you were making a handle out of words for a door that didn't want one. I told you to stop. You didn't." And then the door opened because it was a sliding door. "I'm absolutely the man who forgets sliding doors exist," I whispered. "You are," she said, smiling in the dark. "But you're also the man who puts socks on with ceremony." "I contain multitudes," I said. "You contain napkins," she said. We fell back asleep in the middle of a small joke that will probably outlive us. The first hard social thing after the clinic was a baby shower. We debated our RSVP like diplomats. In the end, we went. We brought a gift card because nothing else seemed less loaded. The afternoon was an anthology of tiny socks and pastel threats. The mother-to-be, a friend from Myra's book club, looked happy with an undertone of terror she acknowledged and owned. We sat near the edge of the party and ate 2 sweet cake, and I played a game with a toddler involving a plastic dinosaur and an egg carton, and the rules were that the dinosaur must be surprised each time it found the same egg. On the way home, I asked, "How was that for you?" "Like a museum of a country I don't live in, but am on friendly terms with," she said. "Good. I like the toddler. The dinosaur is a very committed actor. Do you want to?" She elbowed me gently. "We're okay." Time goes in loops until it decides not to. One evening, months later, Mira stood at the sink watering the ZZ plant, and I felt an ache behind my ribs that wasn't sadness or fear, but something like reverence. She caught me staring. "Blessing stare or weighing stare?" she asked. "Blessing," I said. "Stacked blessings. A tower of them." "Be careful with the tower," she said. "I have to reach the soap." We cooked. We ate. We argued about a podcast like it was a senator. We were us. Mira said, suddenly, "I think I know the plant's name." We said 2 weeks. "It's been 2 months." "What is it?" "Wire," she said, touching the stem. "For the thing that holds the shape." "Perfect," I said, and meant it so much I had to leave the room for a breath. On a trip to visit my parents, my mother hugged Mira and whispered something in her ear that made Myra's eyes water, but not from pain. Later in the kitchen, I asked, "What did she say?" She said, "You're my kid too?" "Even if you don't do the kid thing," Mira said. And then she said, "Do you want lemon bars?" And I said yes like it was a sacrament. My father showed me the crooked shelf and pretended it was a joke on purpose. We fixed it together with a level he pretended not to trust, and we were men in a house doing a simple thing well, which is as close to grace as some days offer. On the drive back, Mira said, I know we made the right choice because it keeps feeling right, not because it felt good once. She put her feet on the dashboard and sang along to a song that didn't care if she knew the words. I harmonized badly. We were happy in the long, quiet way, like weather that has decided not to be interesting. It would be neat to end at a lantern festival with a line that swallows its tail and glows. Life is not neat. It is kind sometimes, and it is stubborn, and it gives you small gifts with bad wrapping. Months become a year. A year collects in the corners like dust, and you sweep it into a shape you can live with. There are days when Mira wakes before me and moves around the kitchen with her soft sole step and hums a line from a film score like she's rehearsing for a life we're already in. There are days when I come home and she's sitting on the floor building a pile of paper cranes that aren't wishes, just folds, and the pile itself is the wish. There are days when we fight about something small and discover it was guarding something else, and we open both carefully and put the lids back on with a label so we'll know next time. There are days when I am neat and I notice it and I decide to be kind instead. This looks like listening longer than is comfortable, like saying, I don't know out loud, like making soup on a night when soup would be easier than chickening out. It looks like writing small truths in a notebook and not using them as weapons, only as lanterns. Last week, this is how stories end when you let them keep living. I went to meet Mira at the park after work. The city had hosted another lantern walk without us the weekend before, but a few orbs had been left hanging in the trees like planets with a night off. I found her on a hill with a bag of lemon bars she'd smuggled from the good bakery, the one where the baker uses powdered sugar like a gentle fog. She handed me a bar. Sugar dusted my lip, and she wiped it with her thumb and stuck her thumb in her mouth, deliberate, because choreography becomes a private language over time. We looked at the leftover lanterns. Say it, she said, smiling. Paper lanterns, I said. They look fragile from far away, but up close you can see the wire. Wire, she said, and nodded at the plant in her lap. Yes, she had brought Wire to the park in a tote, like it was a very patient dog. Wire holds the shape, reminds the light where to live. We are wire for each other, I said, because sometimes a sentence, if it's to be true, must be embarrassing. We are, she said, and kissed me, not like a punctuation mark, but like a sentence that decides not to end yet. We stayed until the dark arrived politely, 1 degree at a time. We stayed until the lanterns looked like stars pretending to be closer. We stayed until the park decided it belonged to the crickets. We walked home with the tote swinging between us, Wire taking the bumps like a champion. At the door, Mira said, Do you want soup? Yes, I said. Forever. Forever is an easy word, she said. Then tonight, I said. Tonight, for sure. She smiled. Next time for sure, she said, echoing the kid on the bike from the day after, our private benediction. She unlocked the door. We went in. We made soup. We ate it too slowly. We used too many napkins. We named nothing and everything. We were us. Autumn arrived like a careful teacher. Cardigans, new pens, reminders that light is a currency and the days were budgeting. The first morning the air bit back, Mira put Wire on the sill and said, This is your season. Steady, slow, smug. I made oatmeal like a responsible adult, and then added brown sugar like a child who bribed himself. We decided to host a small thing for friends, the soft kind of gathering that doesn't have speeches and ends when yawns begin. I texted Marco and Dan, and Mira texted Liza from book club and her neighbor Helen, who was 80 and could carry a conversation like a tray full of teacups. We swept and wiped and hid stacks of mail in a drawer we always forget to unhide later. I'm making the soup, I said. I assumed, Mira said. I'm making the playlist. Songs that learn to leave you alone. We set candles on the table, and I put the lemon napkins in a drawer, and then, because we are who we are, took them back out and used them anyway. When the doorbell did its small imitation of excitement, we let our friends in. The apartment filled with coats and voices and the communal choreography of people deciding where to stand. Helen brought a pie with a note on the box. From the good place, not the place that tries to be good. Liza brought olives in a bowl that looked like a moon crater. Marco and Dan brought a loaf of bread that had survived a heroic crust battle. It was easy, easier than I'd allowed. We ate and traded answers to unserious questions. What's your garbage superpower? Marco, I never forget where I parked. Dan, I can fold fitted sheets without breaking the covenant. Mira, I can smell an overripe banana from the hallway. Me, I leave exactly one bite in a dish without meaning to. We laugh a lot. When the talk brushed near children, it didn't sting. It registered and passed, like a train whose schedule we already knew. When everyone left and the sink was a minor tragedy, Mira stood with her hands in the dishwater like a fortune teller and said, "We can do this." The ordinary fancy. It doesn't betray anything. It might be what everything is for, I said. She nodded, solemn in that joking way she does. Bless the lemon napkins, she said. And we both blessed them. Thanksgiving with my parents was a committee of pies and a turkey that looked like it had survived a court case. My mother had made a centerpiece from yard clippings and ambition. My father had decanted wine in a blender because he'd read somewhere that oxygen was a friend. The plan had been to stay 2 nights, do the traditions, football watched without comprehension, walks at the hour when everyone else is napping, my mother's annual story about the year the cranberry sauce refused dignity. But plans are show dogs. Sometimes they won't do the trick on cue. A text at 9 p.m. from Myra's cousin. Aunt Eva tripped. She's okay. Hospital for observation. She says call if you want, but don't drive and make a fuss. This is a request and an order. Aunt Eva was not her aunt, but her mother, Eva having declared aunt a more comfortable public label long ago. Myra's face tightened around the eyes the way Payne takes a seat in the back row and pretends to audit. My mother read the text over her shoulder before I could and said, "Oh, honey," in the voice she uses for weather and deaths and broken vases. "We'll go," I said. "It's a 4-hour drive at night," my father said. Not to stop us, but to give the map a realistic texture. She said not to fuss, Mira said, chewing the word like it was old gum. She's alone. She looked at me, and I didn't need a verb. We packed fast, 2 sweaters, toothbrushes, the pie we'd intended as a gift for the neighbor, because in moments like these you bring offerings to whichever gods are awake. We drove. The highway was a ribbon in a tired hand. We traded coffee and silence. Once Mira said she always looks surprised on hospital beds, like she can't quite believe the bed is beneath her. The bed, not something she's saying. I squeezed her knee and said nothing because the thing I wanted to say would have been a prayer and the road was doing it for us already. At the hospital, the fluorescence made everyone look like they were halfway between punchlines and sacraments. We found Eva sitting up, ankle-wrapped, hair pinned in a way that announced both dignity and the absence of a proper mirror. Her face did the dance parents' faces do when they want to scold and bless you at the same time. "You drove," she said, irritated and pleased. "You texted," Mira said, a matching chord. I hung back, the sun not bylaw, good at chairs and cups. I offered water. I located an outlet for the phone that always dies at crucial moments. I fetched a nurse when a monitor beeped a beep that made Eva swat at it like a fly. When the nurse left, Eva peered at me over her glasses and said, "How's your soup these days?" "Consistent," I said. "Consistency is a virtue that doesn't get invited to the party," she said. "But the party falls apart without it." She looked at Mira then, the look that's half translation, half mirror. "You look well," she said. It wasn't small talk. It was a reconnaissance. "I am," Mira said. "I'm not performing wellness. It's just the current weather." "Good," Eva said. "I dislike theater unless there's a balcony." We dozed in chairs until a doctor with a backpack the size of a toddler said the sprain looked like a sprain and the night could return to being night. We took Eva home, tucked her on the couch with a fortress of pillows, wrote the phone number of an on-call service on a sticky note in letters large enough to be read by a stubborn queen. Before we left, Eva said, "Stay the night," and we did. In the morning, while I made eggs and asparagus like a brunch hostage, Eva said, casually, "I met your mother at your father's art show." There was no art show. She meant Myra's father, who had always called exhibits events because exhibit sounded like a courtroom. We ate peanuts because the gallery was cheap. He carried the bag like it said something flattering about him. Mira smiled. That tracks. He had a way of believing in symbolic food. Eva said, bananas on the counter, lemons in a bowl, apples when he was pretending to forgive himself. And you? Mira asked. I liked soup, Eva said, and I almost laughed at the small luck of the universe agreeing with us. And bread. And I liked the feeling of walking home, carrying something for the table. Symbolism that feeds you is the only kind that matters. She turned to me. You're feeding my daughter. Good. That's a job. Yes, I said. I take it seriously. Don't take it to a meeting, she said. Take it to the stove. We drove back to my parents in time for pie. My mother said, how is she? And Mira said, stubborn and fine. And my mother nodded like she was collecting a set. December threw its tinsel around and insisted on itself. Lights in windows, boxes on porches, invitations to events with titles like Cheer and Chablis. We accepted sparingly. One night, in a mood, Mira suggested we drive around to look at houses, strangers announcing themselves in bulbs. We saw a block that had agreed on a theme, penguins negotiating a polar treaty, a house that had purchased 1,000 candy canes and deployed them like a cavalry, in a modest split level with a single lit star in the top window. That one, Mira said, pointing, that's the message I can read. At home, we pulled the winter box from the closet. We unwrapped ornaments and considered whether a tree was a decision we wanted to make. Let's do the small ceramic one, Mira said, and put it on the bookcase so it can feel superior to the other books. Let the tree be literate, I said. We hung 3 ornaments, a tiny whisk, souvenir from a kitchen store where we'd gotten lost for joy, a paper lantern, obvious, but sometimes obvious is honest, and a wooden bird with a chipped beak that had belonged to my grandmother. We named no meanings out loud. We didn't need to. On the 23rd, a scare that wasn't, but still scared us. Mira winced in the afternoon, and then again, different. Not the echo of the clinic, not the usual choreography of a body that's many systems negotiating, but a jolt that made her sit down faster than gravity requested. We looked at each other like you look at a smoke alarm that insists and then stops. Call, I asked. Wait, she said. She sat still and breathed countable breaths. The pain did not announce itself again. We called anyway. The nurse on the phone had the voice of a person who speaks both panic and calm. She asked good questions. She said to watch and to call back if the jolt returned or started doing tricks. It didn't. We ate toast at the counter like pilgrims returned safely from a 2-minute sea voyage. Adrenaline is loud, Mira said later, under a blanket fort we'd earned. I'm tired from listening to it. We can put in the other room, I said. We can get a podcast and some headphones. She smiled. You're neat, she said. But you're learning. I am, I said. I'm practicing. Good, she whispered into my shoulder, and sleep found us like a favored route. New Year's Eve at Marco and Dan's. They throw the best low-stakes party in the zip code. Hats that don't scratch, champagne that doesn't lie, the living room playlist that knows when to be silent. The niece was there again, now armed with opinions about owls and a cape with stars glued to it. At 11:59, we did the things, counted, kissed, made the noises. At 12:03, we were already cleaning up. This, too, is a ritual. On the walk home, we held hands against the cold. Fireworks popped like polite carpenters far away. Resolution? Mira asked. Be more kind than neat, I said. Write the truths down even when I feel silly. Mine, she said after a pause. Keep practicing with. Let soup be sufficient. Buy better socks. Socks, I said. A noble frontier. At home, we sat on the rug and read our notebooks to each other. Hers full of lists and sketches and a poem about a lemon that becomes a planet. Mine full of 3-line confessions and drawings of wire in different hats. We laughed at the drawings and didn't laugh at the confessions, and then did laugh because we were ridiculous and exact at the same time. Read me your favorite 3, she said. I flipped and chose without overthinking. 1. Guilt is a poor multi-tool. It opens nothing. 2. I am learning to let love be an activity, not a verdict. 3. When you fall asleep facing away from me, I do not feel abandoned. I feel trusted. She made the sound she makes when a sentence finds the seat she'd saved for it. Yours, I asked. She read, 1. I'm not a closed door. I am a door with specific hours. 2. I can leave a room, and the room doesn't hate me for it. 3. The tender thing I feared would make me smaller, made me more accurate. We sat with those for a while. Then she set her notebook down and reached for me and said, come here, like a verb whose conjugations we knew by heart. January pretended to be a blank page. We pretended to believe it for 3 days. Then the world resumed. Emails, trash day, wire hangers that breed in closets. Mira started a project at work that made her talk with her hands again. I had a stretch of assignments that involved making sentences behave. On a Thursday, she said, let's take a trip that isn't about anything. We texted Marco and Dan, and a week later we drove west together, rented a small modern box of a cabin with too many windows and a view of a valley that would look like a postcard even if you scolded it. We took Wire because Wire had become a Bible we actually read. Dan brought a board game that required alliances and betrayal. We opted out and played spades instead because betrayal is more fun when it's contained in rules and expressed via cards. Marco cooked something that involved citrus and patience. We hiked once and immediately became people who narrate moss. We read on couches and passed paragraphs to each other like snacks. On the second afternoon, clouds pulled over the valley like a juvet. Storm, Marco said, delighted. We made tea and watched the sky announce its curriculum. Mira leaned on the glass with her forehead and said, say it. Lanterns, I said. The mountains had folded into shadow, but the shape remained, Wire firm under the weather. Wire. She nodded. Wire is a good name for a band, she said, because jokes are also a way to look at the thing you can't stare down. That night, in the quiet time between second mugs of cocoa and the moment the game box closes, Dan asked, do you ever think about it? The clinic, Mira asked. Any of it, Dan said, careful. Everything that came in a hurry and left slowly. I think with, she said. It's an instrument now, not something I play all the time. But sometimes it's the only melody that fits the room. Dan nodded, like someone who's heard good music before. Marco said, soft, you two taught me to bring soup to serious conversations. Soup is pedagogy, I said. Soup is praxis. We laughed too much at that and then not enough, which is the right amount. Spring arrived late and then all at once, like a guest who texts on my way for a month, then appears with flowers. The sidewalks were full of small bravado. We signed up to help with the lantern walk, volunteers to place tea lights, to hand out paper globes, to say this way in voices like elevators. At the training, 12 of us in a community center that smelled like old basketballs. The coordinator, a man with a halo of gray hair and the calm of 1,000 organized bake sales, said, lanterns are about 2 things, seeing and being seen. Don't overthink the tape. He showed us where to reinforce the wire. I stole his line for later and promised to credit him. On the night, we wore lanyards like we were authorized to be gentle. We taped wires and sorted sticks and showed a 5-year-old how to loop the string so the lantern wouldn't pitch into the duck pond. Myra's face had that specific concentration she reserves for tiny, crucial knots. A teenager with a sharp jawline and careful eyeliner asked me, is this childish? And before I could answer, Mira said, no, it's public. And the teenager blinked and then grinned like she'd been handed a password. When the walk started, we stepped back. The park turned into a river again. I thought of the clinic, of the lemon bar, of the socks of the nurse with the underline and the phone number. I thought, all of that was a lantern too. We carried it. We still do. Sometimes we set it down and enjoy walking without it. Sometimes we pick it back up because a path needs light. After, in the volunteer tent, the coordinator handed out hot chocolate from Cambro like communion and said, you all did good. Nobody went in the pond. Only 2 lanterns learned to fly. That's a win. Mira leaned on my shoulder and whispered, we did a thing that ends tonight. I like that. It doesn't try to be a life. We have a life, I said. We do, she said, and the declaration made me stand a little taller in my own body. Summer asked fewer questions than spring. We moved through days like we'd earned the choreography. Work, home, wire, friends, soup, laughing in the kitchen at dumb puns we wouldn't admit in public. Once in June, we bought a small inflatable pool and set it on the balcony because Heat had decided to audition for a villain role. We sat with our feet in 6 inches of honest water and said nothing for an hour. It was the best hour of the week. On a Thursday that wanted to be Friday, my mother called and said, Eva invited me to an exhibit. She used exhibit because she is not my father. Should we go together and pretend we planned it? We should, I said. The gallery was small and perfect. The work was photographs of kitchens, all taken at night with one light on. Some were messy, pots like shipwrecks, crumbs like constellations. Some were neat enough to hear them hum. One showed a bowl of lemons under a window. Mira touched my arm and didn't need to say it. Eva arrived in a hat that could have directed traffic. She hugged my mother like they were finishing a conversation from the 70s. This one, she said, pointing to a photo of a scarred wooden table with a single spoon on it. That's a marriage. The rest are dates. She turned to us. Don't let anyone sell you a picture of a lemon when what you want is a spoon. I want both, my mother said, because she is greedy in the right ways. We went for noodles after, the kind that slap the bowl and make the table feel like a drumhead. Eva told a story about a man who tried to convince her that salads are a philosophy, and my mother countered with a story about a woman who insisted tea tastes better if you're wearing a cardigan. Mira held court on chopstick technique, generous and precise. I sat in the warm middle of it and thought my quiet, grateful thoughts, the ones that don't need to perform to be believed. In August, Marco texted, "Emergency. The beach is empty and we are not on it." We remedied this. We drove to a shore town where the boardwalk sells nostalgia by the pound and the ocean pretends to have moods. We rented a creaky house, painted the color of a consensus. The first morning, we carried chairs and books and an umbrella that wanted to argue. The ocean was that gray that looks like it's thinking. Mira sat and let the horizon polish her eyes. "Tell me 3 truths," she said, a ritual we had left on the shelf and now dusted off. "Okay," I said. 1. I'm better than I was. 2. I'm not as good as I think when I'm sleeping well. 3. I love this more than I believe in it. She pointed at the ocean. That, yes. She considered. My 3, she said. 1. I do not want to be improved. I want to be accompanied. 2. I'm less afraid of doors that don't take handles. 3. I might want to be an aunt the way my mother is a mother. Specific and public, I said, smiling. I like this version of us. We swam and were ungainly and perfect. We ate fries in paper cups. At night, we played cards and lost on purpose and then by accident. On the last day, we wrote our names in the sand and did not take a picture because the picture is the picture. You don't need evidence of evidence. One night near the end of September, I came home to find the table set simply. 2 bowls, 2 spoons, wire in the middle in a small mood. A note leaned against the plant. Read me the notebook. I did. Not the whole thing. Some truths had gradients that needed daylight, but many. I read the early ones and winced affectionately at myself. I read the middle ones and felt the house of them rise around us. I read the recent ones and found language had learned us a little. Mira listened. When I finished, she said, "I want to say something, and if you try to fix it, I'll throw you out the window." "We're on the first floor," I said. "I'll drag you up the stairs and then throw you out the window," she said, neutral and fond. Here it is. Sometimes I miss a future we didn't choose, even though I didn't want it. I nodded. Me too. It's not regret. No, it's a photograph of a kitchen with a different spoon, she said. And we're allowed to look? I said. We're allowed to say, "That's beautiful," and then go back to ours. She looked relieved in a precise way, like a tight knot had loosened one notch. "Good," she said. I didn't want to keep that sentence alone. We ate soup. We used exactly the right number of napkins. We listened to the radiator make that haunted house clank that means heat is considering its options. Later, we lay on the rug and looked at the ceiling and named cracks after islands we have not yet visited. On a Tuesday, we attract them. It rained as if the sky wanted a do-over. Streets turned into honest mirrors. The ZZ plant looked smugger than usual. Mira said, "Let's get soaked," and we did. We walked without umbrellas and let our clothes choose their shapes. We laughed that laugh that children and drunks and the newly forgiven share. We waved at a bus driver who looked genuinely thrilled to be waved at. We found refuge under the awning of a closed bakery and didn't make the obvious joke about lemon bars out loud, but thought it together and grinned. Back home, we peeled off sopping clothes and left them to make a small lake on the bathroom floor and stood wrapped in towels like philosophers. Mira said, "I used to think joy was a room you book in advance. Turns out it's a pop-up and it pays cash." "Joy is sketchy," I said. "It's my favorite cousin." "Soup?" she asked. "You have to ask?" I said. "Sometimes asking is part of the ceremony," she said. And I understood that asking can be a kind of naming, and naming, done gently, is a way to hold. A year to the week after the clinic, we took the 10-10 again. Not to go anywhere plan-shaped, just to ride, and to get coffee from the cafe with the chalkboard that still, occasionally suggested lemon bars like a life coach. We sat on the bench where it had been hot and loud that day, and now was soft and normal. The mountains were less like paper lanterns and more like themselves. This felt like progress. "Anniversary?" Mira asked. "Commemoration," I said. "Observance," she said. "Tuesday," I said, and we both snorted. We raised paper cups to the parts of us that had waited in rooms together, to the nurse who underlined phone numbers, to the socks, to wire, to soup, to lemon napkins, to friends who brought bread, to mothers who learned new words for the same love, to the way we had not pretended afterward. We drank. It was coffee. It was ordinary. It was perfect. A train slid in and sighed, catching its breath before the doors opened. A group of students hauled suitcases and futures and arguments about majors. A kid wearing too large headphones danced badly and unembarrassed. Mira took my hand, not the knuckle map, not the friendly party clasp. This one a third thing, a hold we had earned but hadn't named yet. "What do you call that?" I asked. "This," she said, and looked at our hands. "Wire." "Wire," I echoed. We sat until the schedule moved people elsewhere. We stayed until the mountains made their evening faces. We walked home the long way, past the diner that applauds restraint, past the park where lanterns obey kind physics, past the window that holds the single star in the top pane. We went inside and did nothing special. We did us. Winter made a hard entrance. The first snow came sideways, rattling the blinds, dusting wire in a film of white that made it look like an elder with something to say. Mira pressed her forehead to the window and said, "Snow is just rain in costume." We had booked a long weekend away, a cabin near a frozen lake. Marco and Dan were supposed to meet us there, but flu took them hostage. "Go anyway," Marco croaked over the phone. "Send pictures. Lie and tell us we're missed more than the scenery." We packed soup ingredients and too many books, drove the hours through sleet, and reached a cabin that leaned like it had opinions about gravity. The place had a fireplace that coughed but cooperated, a loft bed, and windows that looked out onto trees that refused to be photographed. The first night was pure ceremony. Fire, mugs, soup, silence that earned its keep. The second day, we walked to the lake. The ice was stubborn but not trustworthy. A man with a red cap was out there fishing through a hole, his dog standing like a prophet at the edge. We waved. He waved back. We did not step onto the ice. That night the power went out. No storm, no warning. Just darkness taking the keys and saying, "I'll drive." We lit candles, wax, not lanterns, and sat bundled under blankets. Our breath made faint clouds. Mira laughed into her scarf. "Remember when we thought adulthood would mean never being cold unless we wanted to?" "I remember," I said. "We were wrong. We told stories to distract from shivers. I told the one about the time my uncle convinced me the moon followed our car because it owed him money. Mira told one about sneaking onto a neighbor's trampoline at midnight as a kid and how the stars looked like a ceiling fan about to fall. We kissed to keep the air warmer, and it almost worked. The power returned at 2 a.m. with a sigh and a click, and the fridge roared back to life like it had saved the world. We cheered half asleep, then laughed at ourselves, then slept under too many blankets, grateful in the exact way you should be grateful. Briefly, honestly. In February, Eva came to stay for 3 days. She walked in with a suitcase and the air of a woman who could survive on charm and critique alone. Mira hugged her like a daughter and a friend. I carried the suitcase and got a "don't strain your metaphor muscles." Over tea, Eva asked, "When are you two getting married?" She said it not like a demand, but like someone asking when the play starts. Mira smiled. "We're already us." "That's a dodge," Eva said. "It's the truth," Mira said. Eva turned to me. "Do you want to marry her?" "Yes," I said before I could overthink it. "But I don't need a certificate to make soup." Eva laughed, full and delighted. "Good boy. But if you do it, wear shoes that don't apologize." That night, she told me a story while Mira showered. A story of her own youth, of names taken and dropped, of futures that went missing. She ended with, "The only trick I learned, don't let silence decide for you." When Mira returned, hair damp, Eva said, "He's a good listener. Don't spoil him." "I'll try," Mira said, but her smile betrayed her. In March, a small grief found us. Wire yellowed suddenly, 2 leaves dropping without ceremony. Mira frowned like a teacher at a failing student. I watered, I turned, I apologized. "Plants keep their secrets," I said. We clipped the dying stems, rearranged the soil, whispered encouragement like lunatics. It didn't matter. Wire lost half itself. For 3 days, Mira carried the pot from room to room like a sick child. On the 4th, she set it on the sill and said, "Okay, be what you are. I'll still sit beside you." The surviving stalks, straightened by spring, greener, sturdier, fewer. It wasn't the same wire. It was wire revised. "This is us," Mira said one morning, brushing soil from her hands. "Yes," I said. "Fewer, greener, revised." She kissed me quick, not dramatic, and said, "Don't make a speech about it." "I won't," I said, and mostly didn't. By summer, the notebook was nearly full. 3 truths each night, some shallow, some deep, some jokes that turned into confessions. One entry read, "The sound of her teeth against the spoon when she's distracted makes me love her more, not less." Another, "I fear being forgotten more than I fear death, but less than I fear never being useful." When I handed it to Mira one evening, she read page after page, pausing, sometimes laughing, sometimes pressing her lips to a line like it was skin. At the end, she closed it softly. "You made a book out of a year," she said. "You made the year," I said. She slid the notebook under Wire's pot, like a foundation. "Let's keep it there. For roots." Another year passed. Seasons circled. Soup simmered. We fought and forgave, laughed and named, carried lanterns and let them go. One Tuesday, exactly 2 years after the first train ride, we sat again on that bench at the platform. Coffee cups in hand, suitcases light this time. The mountains were themselves, no metaphors needed. Mira leaned into me. "So, Wire held." "It did," I said. "And so did we." I looked at our hands. "Wire," I said. She kissed me. Not like punctuation, like continuation. The train slid in, sighed, opened its doors. We didn't board. We sat. We let the moment be the thing. And when the mountains caught the light just right, Mira whispered, "Lanterns." I nodded. "Lanterns. Always lanterns."